Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Technically Inappropriate. This week, the guys will be talking about retro tech while their esteemed intro and exit narrator contemplates agreeing to do another one of these while sick. On this journey, our tech experts, or techsperts as I like to call them, will struggle to find meaning in film cameras, flip phones, and vinyl records, which takes a really weird turn when Russ starts talking about trying to run around in the desert. Tony explains why there's an Australia Day, Rob struggles to find anything he can get Tony to actually agree with, and I am left to wonder if this intro will even make the cut. Thank you all for bearing with me, but let's go check in and see where the boys are now.
Australia Day.
Sorry, Australia Day. Tell us all about Australia Day.
Australia Day, technically, apparently, according to legend, was first observed in 1808 in Australia on the 20th of January. And it supposedly looked at or venerated, enjoyed, celebrated, whatever they call it, the fleet getting into Sydney Harbour, putting the first groundworks for the colony in Sydney in 1788. So Australia was discovered well before 1788. You know, dickheads have been driving around for quite some time in, wooden canoes and finding it. But, working under the great theory that nothing is discovered until a white explorer turns up. They discovered, and this was one of the funny things, actually, just going on a tangent for a moment, because this is the, episode 2, Budgie Smuggler's Revenge. And, you had some explorers, like there was the Dutch guy, I think his name is Van Diemen, because they used to call Tasmania Van Diemen's Land. But I think he managed to miss the entire continent of Australia. Like, the entire thing. He went all the way south, missed the whole bloody thing, ran into Tasmania and said, "Whoa, I found a country." It's like, no, you found an island, son. And then I think he proceeded to miss New Zealand. It's like all you had to do was drive straight from Tasmania into New Zealand, and you would. Anyway, moving on.
It's like my mom trying to find the mall.
It's like, I swear to God, the Dutch should never be allowed to park. And so they came up the east coast of Australia because Captain Cook had been there, and many people have been there, and they discovered the country earlier. And they did that whole, like, we're going to create a settlement in Australia in 1788, and that's it. That's the start. That's the first fleet. It's there. We dug it in. We're going to send our convicts down there. Britain's loving it. And that was supposedly where it came from. I'm a little bit more realistic, one would say, because I don't think it happened from that. So Australia didn't become an actual country until 1901. Prior to that, all of the states were actually individual colonies of England, much like America was. If you think about America, the original 13 colonies that formed America,
they were colonies.
Right? They were colonies. They were all individual colonies of Britain, of the UK, of England, whatever the hell. And eventually they said, like, if the English want their tea, they can damn well come over here and get it themselves, those douche nozzles. And
think that's quote for quote, actually.
Yeah, that was I believe that's what they said when they threw the tea into the harbor in Boston, right? And so that was 1901. Well, that was January 1st, 1901. And I swear to God, I think the Australians all sat around and said, we already get New Year's Day off. Right? Let's not create a holiday that we already get off. Let's push it closer towards the end of summer. Let's take another holiday towards the end of summer. So what's the thing that we could argue? Oh, yeah, well, all right, 26th of January, that looks good. Done. They call New Zealand because of all of its hydrothermic and volcanic activity and everything. They call it the land of the long white cloud. Australia should be called the land of the long weekend. So we love that. The only way you can get an uprising in Australia is by banning beers, barbecues, or long weekends. Otherwise, the rest of the country, you guys do whatever the hell you want.
It's fine. Welcome back to Technically Inappropriate, where we
how's
learn all
that?
About Australia Day.
How's that sound working? Because we're still trying to work this out.
It seems to be fine. I mean,
Yeah.
you could be if you want to hype it up a little bit. Otherwise, let's get it in post.
Do you need me to turn up or turn down?
Turn up?
All right, turn up. How's that? Are we talking now?
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Are we in? We good?
We good.
All right.
Everything else will fix in post, obviously.
I'm going to turn my monitors down because the rest of you sound, too goddamn annoying.
That isn't going to fix with any volume you can use, man.
It's going to be a long hour.
Yeah. How you doing, Russ? What you been up to?
I am back from a sojourn in the desert.
I was going to say, yeah. What are you doing out in the middle of the desert other than burying bodies?
So I have some friends who are more idiotic than me, maybe, and they were attempting
a podcast.
They were attempting a fastest known time for what's known as the Big Bend 100, which is a 106-mile route across the desert. They were running this unsupported, meaning they're bringing all their own stuff. And I obviously am not a runner, but
wait, they were running?
They were hiking quickly.
Were they being chased by anything?
I think that there were some javelinas at some point, but that wasn't how it started.
You know that if God had meant man to run, he would never have allowed the internal combustion engine to be developed, right?
Well, I tried to explain that to him on the way out there, but it was fun. And I was just there in case they got into trouble. Unfortunately for me, they didn't get into trouble, so I just got to hike around in the desert, not running, for a few days, and it was pretty fun. It's beautiful out there. It's a whole different landscape.
So this was your smoldering man, then?
Yes. It's definitely more my speed because there's no other people out there. So I can't imagine.
So far, it sounds like you still have better time than me. We didn't record last week because, I think the plague had descended on our house, and
you were popping buboes.
I'm gonna see how many times I have to mute and or cut out coughs that accidentally get out in this podcast today. But yeah, so it was pretty much just me. I was the house is still kind of an infirmary because now that I'm kind of over it, now Alice has it, and out of it she got a sinus infection. So I spent all day in like a walk-in clinic, going back and forth a couple times to finally get her in. So yeah, not much fun here, but.
Oh. Well, you sound a-okay as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
it's when the it's when the snot goblins start coming out. That's the problem.
So fortunately, this is an audio medium, so
yes.
We'll just have to describe it. We can paint a picture, Tony.
We'll put up crayon
I don't think
pictures.
anyone needs to see the painted verbal picture of Rob's snot goblins.
No, I look fine. I look fine. This is just how I always look. I'm good.
And this is the point where Rob does the merch sponsor point.
That's right.
That's right.
You can get your you can get your monogrammed budgie smugglers here. So through the opener, technically inappropriate. Three men who sit around and believe they have something to say and decide to record it for no good reason other than to make other people have to deal with us. Oh man, So I would say our topic today is lost tech or retro tech. I've been sitting here looking around. I bought a film camera and I've developed film for the first time since sometime in the mid 90s. But you look at the price of film cameras and they're skyrocketing because everybody's suddenly back into film. And now, like, records came back and everyone's popping out new vinyl, but also people are bringing back the cassette tape. I thought we worked as hard as possible to get CDs to get out of the cassette tape era, but they're back. And then I was reading an article yesterday. People are buying flip phones again, like actual, honest to God, flip phones. Like Nokia makes them a flip phone. Their newest one has a USB. I was like, how old is this thing? It has a USB-C port on it. I'm like, well, at least it has that. So
Well,
anyway,
so you end up, and this is, I think the interesting thing about legacy tech, for want of a better word,
right.
right? Is it better or is it artistic? Right, and
Right.
that's, I think, the thing is that I honestly, if you ask me, is a cassette tape better than a CD? I'd tell you no. I would buy a CD any day of the week over buying a cassette tape. Would I listen to a vinyl record over a CD? Absolutely no. I would
No.
never listen to a vinyl record over a CD, right?
I brought my vinyl player
But-
with me for the day.
But if you if you think about it in the sense of like the artistic interpretation or the filtering that occurs. So imagine, step back, right? You have a perfect microphone. You have the Bangles doing Walk Like an Egyptian. You have perfect microphones. You have
Absolute classic.
recorded everything they have done perfectly. You put it on a vinyl record, you put it on a CD. Your CD is going to have some amount of quantization noise. It's going to have some amount of degradation. You're going to have Nyquist theory. You're going to have all that stuff applied to the digital representation of the sound. You're going to put it on vinyl. You're going to have not that. You're going to have noise. You're going to have delay. You're going to have shaping that occurs. Which of the two is actually better? Well, now it comes down to the argument that you have is, what do you like? If you prefer the sound of vinyl, then CDs aren't better, right? If you prefer what the CD does, then it's better. And that's my point. I think a lot of like the retro tech, with the exception of the flip phones, I have a thing about the flip phone that I can get to.
we'll bring that one up next. I want to go through. Let's go through audio first. I like this.
But with like audio and film, like the film grain, the grain gives it a look that you cannot get on a 4 or 8 or 12K camera, right? And if that look is the artistic representation that you're trying to do, then that makes, it's the right medium, and that's my thing. It's like, I remember the cassette tape era. Like I grew up in the cassette tape era. I grew up in the 8-track era. It's like until you've had, the only 8-track in your parents' Volvo that works is Band on the Run, you've never lived the 8-track era. And, it's I bought BASF, we don't make shit, but we make shit better.
Right.
People, right? I bought their cassette tapes that were metallized because they gave a better recording, and then I proceeded to play them on like a $7 Sony Walkman, right? Because because I'm all about fidelity,
Right.
and it's about like the the medium you have, what you want out of it, and then we can have a complete other discussion about the economics that are then involved around the medium in and of itself, right?
Sure. Russ, your thought.
It's interesting because, Tony, you're talking about, I think from my perspective, this is about aesthetics, and it actually sounds like that's what you're saying too. What's interesting is you're talking about the outcome, right? What, that it looks different on film versus digital, or it sounds different on vinyl versus digital. When I'm thinking about these sort of regressive technologies that are coming back, I'm thinking about, well, I think the appeal from my perspective is the ritual of using whatever that is. So it's the input as opposed to the output, but it's still aesthetics, right? It's still the ritual of, pulling the record out of its sleeve and putting it on the player, or the ritual of developing your film. Or I'm thinking about other regressive technologies like, smoking a pipe, and packing it with tobacco, and using all the little tools, and there's like a ritual to these things. That I think there's pleasure in just consuming these things because of that ritual, regardless of whether the outcome is, to your point, Tony, the output is inferior or superior based on your own subjective standards. So,
yeah, I think that's a great point. I personally would not want to have an outdoor toilet because the
you don't want that ritual
made it fantastic. But no, I understand the ritual aspect of it. And when I was saying output, I was a bit thinking about the whole, with you've got a smartphone, it has
questionably,
it has a multi-megapixel sensor on it, and it can take photos every, like 25 milliseconds or something. So you point it at something, you push the button, it takes 57 photos, and then you slide through them all and you pick, okay, that's the one. Versus, when you had the film camera and you were like, all right, this is the photo that I'm taking. I get the point you're making, Russ, about the ritual of it. I don't think I have no problem with that. I really don't. The problem I have with it comes from people that's, oh no, vinyl is just clearly superior. Or the film is just clearly superior.
Let me play around with this a little bit. And I don't know where I'm going with this piece, but like, I want to
probably wrong based on our previous history.
You know me, yeah. No opinionated Australians here, but the core thing that I will say to Russ's point, like, yeah, I have an actual full on Rocket espresso machine at home, right? Like, do the whole bean grind, you tamp it down, you put it in the machine and all that. I don't have the Keurig things or anything like that, because I do agree with the piece that Russ said, and it is the ritual that first thing in the morning I finally decide to get the fuck out of bed, and then I stumble downstairs, and I know I got another 15 minutes before I have to do any fucking thing else, because I'm going to sit in front of that machine, grind beans, tamp it out, make shots, steam some milk, do all this stuff. It's therapeutic, so I get that. And yeah, could I probably get something that tastes almost as good other ways? Yeah, probably. I will say in this situation, the Rocket's probably doing a much better job of making my espresso than anything else on the market for reasons. But then I do look at the vinyl, and I have to go and vinyl today and what you can do and what you can spend on it, you can get a phenomenal sound experience, way better than you can out of a CD.
Yeah, that's just bullshit, Rob.
No, it's not.
It really is. No, it is fundamental bullshit, right? Because what you've got is you've got a system that can be accurately modeled in software the entire way through.
Well, I'll give
Right.
you that for a FLAC, right? Or
Now-
something that's lost.
No. At any point, like the mass of the needle and the way that it reacts to the grooves can be modeled, right? So you can make a digital system that accurately reflects. Now, are we talking about, instead of a 3 meg 3-minute song, are we talking about a 2 gig 3-minute song, right? Let's not talk about the data.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is, can you do it? And the fact is you can do it, right? And the point comes down to is whether or not it matters to do it, right? Because, and this is where I was going, it doesn't matter. Like, no matter how accurate the piece of technology that I deliver to you that can simulate from a 3,000 kilohertz sampled signal, right, and duplicates your turntable and everything, it's not, as this comes back to Russ's point, it's not as good to you because it's not the ritual of putting the vinyl on the player, taking the handle, dropping it on the disc, listening to the as you try and get it in the groove, right, and then letting it play. It's not the same, right? It's like, it's like I have, so I have a Shadow Sabre, which is a Honda metric cruiser.
Right.
Right? It's an 1100cc V-twin metric cruiser. And it's the Japanese Harley. It's not
Right.
necessarily
Well, I mean-
exactly that, but it's in that class. But it's not a Harley. No amount of my thing doesn't leak oil. It doesn't, it starts every time. It doesn't need, $2,000 of repair every month. It's never going to make it a Harley.
Because it's
no
not
matter
made of a
what-
tractor engine from the early 1900s.
No matter what I do to it, it's not going to be a Harley. And my point is that people that say, oh, well, you can't do this way. It's like, no, you can, but it's not the same. And that's, I think, the root point that you were trying to make. It's like, look, I can have a 1942 Dodge Neon lowered with, like
Rob does.
helium
Yeah.
and,
I think
and
I'm a Dodge
nitrous
Neon guy or
oxide and everything. It's not going to be a muscle car, no matter how much you're more horsepower, faster over a quarter mile. Nothing. It's not going to be a muscle car.
Right.
That's what we're talking about here. We've got not regressive technologies. We've got technologies that have, as Russ said, and this is probably the first time Russ has actually been insightful, is that have a ritual involved with them, that have a thing that makes them different. And I think that's the real point of what we're doing.
It's almost like that thing. The inconvenience of it makes it feel more authentic, right? So all of this technology moves us towards more and more convenience, but it makes our experience less human. There's fewer imperfections, right? In one way.
Well, yeah, I guess that's part of it. I will say there are things within the vinyl that you just can't do CD.
Yeah.
Period. The upper limit on how far you can go in the kilohertz and all that, CDs have limits.
Oh, well, see, so no. Let's back up here, Rob.
Well, no, you want to say what's better? I'm gonna hold you to that.
Now, I want to be clear in this point that what you're talking about is a fixed standard, which is a CD, which is what, like 16-bit, 44.1 kilohertz sample rate.
Is it
Again,
16? Maybe it
Nyquist
is.
theory, all that stuff. It has all of that limitations around it, right? Yes, I agree with you. There are things on the analog medium that the CD medium cannot deliver.
Okay. Now we're
Right.
now we're talking. Okay.
But can I do what you are doing in the analog medium with an appropriate digital
Oh, I think you
simulation?
can. I
Yes.
think digitally, yes. I think you can.
Absolutely.
I think you can.
Now, I would argue that there is absolutely bugger all, or possibly nothing, that you could do in the cassette tape media that would be better than the CD.
Now, I'm pretty excited to hear about cassettes coming back because I've got a box full of mixtapes from the 80s that
Oh,
I would love
man.
to listen to.
Oh,
again.
well, dude, what you need to do is you need to take them to Rob, let him put that in that 1942 Dodge Neon, right? Because what will happen is half of those tapes will turn into the best of AC/DC, and the other half will turn into the best of Cold Chisel.
Don't make me count. All right.
No,
That would be a crying shame.
I had that. I had a car when I was in the Australian Army. I had a car. I have never ever bought an AC/DC or a Cold Chisel tape in my car, and so
Uh-oh.
I have no idea where they came from.
There we
I
go.
think they
You
just
better.
magically converted in the car. And there's probably something. It's probably like in America. It's probably like if you're from the Northeast, they'd probably turn into a best of Bruce Springsteen or something like that. You know, in the South, it would be the best of Charlie Daniels. You know, if you're in California, it'd probably be the best of the Bedwetters or something. You know,
Yeah, it was one of my favorite bands growing up, Bedwetters. Okay. So that one's interesting. I would say, yeah, CDs, maybe CDs did get a bad rap because of mastering in general. Because, I mean, you look at some of those first ones that are mastered.
yeah, that's a great point because when you moved, I think now I'm not a sound guy. You know, to be clear.
Yeah.
But, we moved from analog to digital, and that enabled people to play around with things like sound levels. But I think there's a term, and I'm probably completely wrong here, about apparent sound level. I think or psychological sound level. It's like the sound level you hear compared to the sound level the amp is actually putting out. And a lot of digital, because now you can screw with stuff that was really hard to do in analog electronics. Now you can push that. It's like how, I don't even know because I don't watch ads on TV, now because I, have modern equipment. But, when you used to watch ads on TV and you'd be listening, and then the ad would come in, and suddenly, your neighbors would be banging on the fence saying, for God's sake, turn that down, right? Now, there were laws in the US that said that the ads, the noise or the sound level of the ads could not be above the sound level of the program that was in the show. So, imagine if you had a program that had an average sound level of, say, 0 dB, right? The ad couldn't be more, and I don't know what the real figures are, but the ad couldn't be more than, say, 3 dB above that. But then a bunch of people worked out that what you could do is modify the sound in such a way that the human ear perceived it as 6 dB above the range. But the measurement tools they used still said it was only 3 dB above, right? And so you end up with all that sort of, dicking around that occurs with mastering. They do the same thing, where they're like, oh, I want a louder sound, so I'm going to squeeze these digital parameters to get a louder sound that they couldn't do back in the day when the Beatles were, making their records in Abbey Road or wherever the hell they did it,
Abbey Road. So Russ, you had a technology you wanted to see regress?
Well, I just, as long as we're on the topic, I'm wondering
Yeah.
if there are technologies that you would like to see go down the path of regression and bring us back to the good old days.
Is this
So,
the
like-
flip phone?
Well, flip phone is certainly an option if you want to talk about it. I was thinking air travel might be my first choice.
Oh, well, which part of it?
Can we get back to Concords?
Oh yeah.
Well,
Well,
if you go back to Concords, does that mean we have to wear shirt and ties when we travel?
You at least have to
just
wear
the
a shirt.
just the tie, just the tie. Well, I heard American has put in money on 6
That
supersonic
boom
planes.
the whole
okay,
boom
all right.
thing. No,
Yeah,
I think boom is a grift. I really do. You know,
Yeah.
I think they. At least what I've read, and I apologize to anyone that's invested in boom or boom people that might be listening, but what I've seen is they don't have engines. They don't have.
I heard that's so big.
They don't have they have models. They have like mock-ups. They have all that stuff, and it is a bit of a chicken and egg thing. I freely admit it. It's like Concorde only got built because the British and the French decided that for one small period of time they hated America more than they hated each other. And
That's not a one-time thing.
well,
Well,
like, let me refer you
let's-
to World War One and World War Two, right? But
Well,
I think boom. I would love to see it. Like I really would. I'd love to see a plane that could get me from Seattle to Sydney in like 5 hours, right?
Right.
And cost as much as a 777 flight there or a 787 flight. Right, I'd love to see that. Like, I really would. I'm not saying don't do it, don't invest, don't research it.
Well, here's the problem with it, I'll say, and why the Concorde basically failed, not because of its flight record or anything like that, and it's not even just the Concorde. If you look at planes, especially Boeing's over the years, they're not getting faster, they're getting slower because they can save fuel, and people have decided they'd rather have a cheaper flight than a faster flight. And so, yeah, if you look at like the Boeing, some of the first Boeing 700s, they flew a lot faster than your Dreamliners and all that did.
You raise an interesting point in the sense that I think that if you look at what the FAA can do in a corridor from Seattle to Chicago, there is only a certain amount of planes they can stick in that corridor. And those planes have to fly at a certain... It's Bernoulli principle. Think about it, right? The water comes through at a certain speed, right?
Right.
The planes come through at a certain speed. It can only deal with that, the planes at that speed to get that volume through the corridor. And, I think, I find it hard to believe, and it's not that the 707s flew faster. It's not the 727s flew faster. It's not the everything after the 727 is still in production, basically. I think they just killed
Right.
the 757. But, it's not that they fly slower, because they can't fly faster. It's because...
It's
No,
fuel
it's not.
savings.
I don't think it's fuel savings. I think it's like you can't pump planes through any faster.
Oh no, I know. I mean, I read up on this.
Uh,
It is fuel savings. It was cheaper to fly them slower, because
Well,
of fuel savings. Like, there's
Yeah,
a bunch
I
of
think
stuff.
you're a lying fuck. But,
Well, that's also true.
yeah.
I was more interested in hearing if you've got technologies you would
Instead, we're bitch.
Me?
I did not mean to turn this into.
We're bitching
Boeing
about
talk.
FAA.
Boeing bitching with Robin.
It's
with Robin Tony.
spoken wheel
Seattle
versus
people.
point to point. This is our podcast
right.
here.
No, that's.
Let's get back to the
that's an
flip phone, for
interesting one.
fuck's sake. You know.
Okay,
Yeah, I want to hear about the
flip phone us.
Well, so I saw this whole thing. I think, which was Rob was alluding to in his dodgy introduction.
They're all dodgy.
That there's been a resurgence in people wanting to use flip phones, and so not because the flip phone in and of itself, I think, makes a difference. I think it was the less smartphone aspect, turning off the social media parts of the phones, you know, stopping people from, you know, I've got to sit there and tweet 24/7, or I've got a Facebook. Oh no, there's an Instagram thing I need to do now. Yeah. If you have a flip phone, and look, I owned a Block 1 Mark 1 Razor. I loved that thing. It was indestructible. You know, milled out of titanium. I swear to God, you could have brought down a Russian jet with it. And you know,
send them to Ukraine.
They're probably there. You know, but it had no features. It ran like, you know, J2ME version, you know, 0.1 or something. You know, it was like the busted ass version of anything automation on the phone. What it did do, made phone calls really well. And I think that's part of the thing that people are starting to realize, that they're so stuck on their phones. They're Instagramming, they're you know, TikToking, they're tweeting, they're doing this. They're not actually they're not interacting with the real world. They're just simply documenting it. And that creates I sent, you know, I have a bunch of guys I used to work with, and I have a Slack channel with them. And I sent a photo of a Kid Rock concert. And everyone down near the stadium they weren't watching the concert. They were all taking photos or videoing Kid Rock, you know. And I'm like, yeah, that's the example. And I think that's why the flip phones are coming back, because it forces you to not have that 24/7, 365 social media hit.
Data in your face.
I mean, I'll come back to, it's less convenient, but it feels more authentic, right?
Is that so? Let me ask this of you, Russ. So, are you feeling like, when we talk about film cameras, we talk about record players, we talk about all of these technologies, do we think we have a group of younger people who are quite literally struggling to kind of come to some kind of connection with the world around them a bit more? Because we're talking about rituals and things like that. I'm just feeling this nuance throughout everything we've talked about.
Well, as someone who's not a younger person, I have no fucking idea.
Very thought about, but I mean, everything we've talked about.
I don't know that. Well, I guess for the vinyl trend, maybe some of this stuff is just, there are certainly audiophiles that can talk about the importance of vinyl, but I can promise you, most people who are buying a record player at Urban Outfitters are not thinking about loss levels and kilohertzes. They're just like, oh yeah, okay, I hear vinyl's trending. So who knows what the young folks are doing? My guess is that they're, if some college kid decides he's going to start using a straight razor because that seems more authentic.
Sarah's bomb of the week.
Yeah, I know.
How'd she hurt her finger?
Anyhow, if some college kid decides to start using a straight razor because for reasons. I can promise you those reasons aren't that they're going to get a closer shade, even if that's true.
Right.
Actually, I'd be willing to watch that. I'd probably pay money to see a college kid try and use
As long as they're
straight
TikToking
razor.
them,
Yeah.
chopping
right.
their face up.
If they could both use the straight razor and TikTok dance down the road at the same time, well, yes. This is our
So
game plan.
Exactly.
Sorry, go ahead.
I
Ross.
don't.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess long and short is I don't see them rushing to go play Zork instead of whatever it is they're playing these days.
So then I
Zork
almost
Plus.
have to say it's the depressing other way. It's almost the depressing other way. They're just doing it because they feel it helps them fit in with everyone else they see on TikTok. Is this really what we've come to?
I
TikTok
think
is ruining everything.
I honestly believe that the social pressure to be a conformist is probably worse now than it was when we grew up, right? Because you're not given that 24/7 reinforcement of what you should be or what you should look like or what you should do or whatever. You know, it's like my day when I was a kid going to high school is that I would get up, Mum would make me breakfast, I'd have that, I'd jump on my bike, I'd ride to high school, go to classes all day, play a little bit of contact sports during all the breaks, primarily because that wasn't allowed, because I was a bit of a rebel. But
No.
yeah, you haven't played touch football until you've played contact touch football, and
Touch is a form of a tackle is a form of touch.
and and then I'd ride home. I might, I'd have something to eat in the afternoon. I'd read some books. I'd maybe watch a bit of TV. I would read more books. I would, and then go to bed. I didn't have, 700 different TikTok influencers telling me that I should do this and I should look like that. And so,
I should use
yeah,
this camera to
the
make
pressure
pictures
the
with.
kids, I think, are under to conform is way harder now. It's my family didn't have money. I wore seconds, what they call seconds, Russ. And Rob, I don't know if you guys know this. It's like
I'm using the context clues.
Yeah.
you
Hand-me-downs.
they made school uniforms near where I grew up, and so whenever the machinery would screw up and cut a sleeve or break something, whatever, the inspectors would take it and they'd throw it out of the thing. They say it's not it's not for selling, but it also wasn't worth them going back and trying to fix it, but it was worth my mum going there and buying those things and taking them home and then manually picking everything apart and then re-sewing everything appropriately.
I just see Tony walking down the hallway with one sleeve longer than the other as he's.
That's where I thought
No,
you were headed. That's why I
my
wore
mum is
skirts
a
the last 3
fabulous
years
woman,
of
and
high
she wouldn't let me do that. I might have done that. I would have done. In fact, I've probably done that in my
You might be doing
right
it
now. Exactly. Because I don't care that much. But by God, she was like, I'm going to wear a school shirt that is exactly as good as anyone else in that school, even though she bought it as a second. The pressure these kids are under, though, it's like, once I wore that shirt, once it looked fine, nobody knew that. But now, like, go back about 15 years or 20 years, guys, when you're reading the news stories about kids getting mugged for their Air Jordans and stuff like that,
Yeah.
When I went to, and this is like get off my goddamn lawn, When I went to school, we had a school uniform, and we were not allowed to deviate from the school uniform. And the reason they put that in was because to stop this type of bullshit where some kids would come to school in like really expensive clothes. And, I grew up in a poor steel working area, and some kids couldn't afford that,
Yeah, my Catholic school experience was, I thought the uniforms were supposed to be the equalizer, but you could distinguish who was coming from which part of town by the quality of their shoes and bags and
Interesting.
all their accessories.
You're not going to stop. Kids are dicks, right? You're not going to stop kids from working that out.
Yeah.
You got the title for your show,
Yeah.
Rob.
Oh yeah, kids are dicks.
Kids are dicks.
It was hard for us. Like everyone was bundled to the hill. Everyone was just trying not to die. So
Sure.
once you got to school, though, who was wearing the same
Right,
shirt
because
times
you
month or
could
whatever.
tell whether they had a good yak pelt around them, or
This
no,
yacker, northern.
Or Rob sitting alone at the cafeteria table eating whale blubber.
look at the Duffalo. He had
Imitation well blubber. I couldn't
look
afford
at the
real stuff.
Duffalo. He had to wear two of the yak pelts because his yaks don't have good hair.
Oh
Some mangy yak.
Look how mangy his yak
But
is.
to drag this back from yak sexuality
My poor high school
to the flip phone, I think
You haven't beat that
I
down
think
enough yet.
bringing the flip phone back for certain, what do you need? I look at what I use my phone. The two biggest reasons I use my phone right now for, the three biggest reasons I use my phone for right now is one, to make phone calls. Two, because I have to use some goddamn piece of shit app that some dickhead said that to use their piece of gear, I have to have their app to enable me to do it. And three, because I don't want to get bored while I'm taking a dump. Right?
My favorite thing about using a phone. I will not argue that one.
And
Yes.
do kids need the apps to control the stuff around it? I have the app for using the iRobot, and we've had this discussion about I have an iRobot at the cabin that just goes around that. I need that because you can't use the iRobot without the app, right? And
You can't change the temperature of my house.
By the
on
way,
my
this third use case for the phone is exactly why anytime anybody tries to hand me their phone, as in, here, look at these pictures, or here, check this number out. Always,
Stay away with that thing.
I can guarantee.
there is a
I know where that
lot.
thing's been.
Why do I have pink eye?
I think it would be interesting if if somebody at a university did a study of wiping people's phones in the streets to see the amount of fecal matter that was on them.
The fecal
No,
coliform.
I do not want this study. I already have enough problems with the amount of studies that have been done on cars and
You
fecal.
just got to put it in the box of things. It's better not to think about like mites on your eyebrows and.
Oh, I don't.
I just thought of a tech I want to come back. No, I
Oh,
thought of a
okay.
tech I want to come back. I want the V8.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I want the V8 back. Everything's a freaking turbocharged
Oh, no.
V6 now. I actually love the V8.
I don't know. I don't know about Russ, but you will get absolutely no challenge from me, Rob. I think a naturally a naturally aspirated but fuel injected V8
Yeah.
with a fantastic exhaust system and such. You cannot. There is no better driving experience in the world than that.
I thought you were talking about the vegetable drink.
Oh, no. That's still around. but I do have to admit, we finally found something me and Tony agree on in retro. Took us the whole
Well, I
episode.
wouldn't
but we got
stick
there.
one in your Dodge Neon, you dickhead.
No. I've got plenty of other use cases for that. I mean, even I have that stupid gigantic transit van, and even that's just got
Yeah,
a
but you
V6 in
wouldn't
it
put a
now.
V8 in the transit van either. Come on, seriously?
I would
No,
too.
I get it.
I think she-
But all right, the natural habitat for the V8 is a 4-door saloon car. That's the natural habitat.
like a Commodore.
And because I'm Australian, it could be
Right.
a ute, right? Mm-hmm. So
The Commodore and the Ute are two
you're either
big
a
cases
4-door
for us.
saloon car with a V8 or a ute with a V8. And yeah, I think, I love a V8. Now, I don't have a V8, but
No.
because what I have is I
No
have
one
a,
does, David.
a 6-cylinder twin turbo, right?
Right. As do I in my
So,
transit, right?
But yeah, it's the V8, that rumble, you just can't get
Right.
somewhere else. And this actually, if we drag the entire talk back to when I was talking about Harleys, this
Yeah.
is the whole thing. No matter how fast your rice burner is, it's not going to be a V8 muscle car. And it's not that your rice burner is worse. Well, it is rice burner, but it's not that your rice burner is worse. It's just different.
Oh, it's a totally different feel, right? Well, with the natural aspirated, V8, you're getting the instant gratification of romping the pedal and immediately getting pressed in your seats. Where it's even in my big Outback it's a 2.4 the turbo, right? And it's put it down, wait for it. Okay, now you're pressing the seat about as hard as you can, like you launched a rocket.
Oh, is it that
But
really
it's,
delayed? Is that got that bigger turbo lag?
It's got a bit, yeah. I will say, even my newest, the 2002 Outback I got, you can hear the turbo wind up, and then finally it hits about 4.5, 5, and then
it's like a rubber band.
yeah, and then
just-
it's pressing you back. And I mean, even that guy, and it's not that big. I mean, yeah, because my lower Dodge Neon, aka Subaru STI, with a big turbo, rotated turbo. Yeah, that thing, when it spools up and it's hitting 35 pounds of boost or whatever, we built Fords the internals to do that. Yeah, you feel that thing kick and you go. But yeah, even newer cars these days, if the turbo's not done just right, that's why usually you get those smaller 2 turbos. You get less of that lag. That's why they Fords, right?
they have in a lot of diesels, they have the twin stage turbos. And that's-
you
but-
get that.
I have, Russ. I have an F-150 with the twin turbo EcoBoost engine in it.
Yeah, and I have the same.
Absolutely
engine, and it's a Transit
nothing
350.
eco about it. Let's be clear. Right.
Ego terror, maybe.
Yeah.
But that thing, as far as I can tell, because you pull up at I don't know if they have it, where you live, but they have these things where you come onto the on-ramp and, the state's go, oh, we need to delay people getting onto the freeway.
Oh,
And
so
there's a light.
There's
You
a
pull-
light.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when I give it the business on that thing, I can't feel a point which Rob was talking about where the turbo has finally spooled up and now it's really pushing it in. Now you get that pulse of power. I think Ford did a good job with making it just be a straight climb there.
Linear
It may
curve,
not be
yeah.
the best way of doing it. I'm not saying it is, but
It is the reason you get those twins instead of a single big turbo.
it works really well. But I've never had a car. I've never had a vehicle that I've driven that has that big jump where the turbines sit there going, I'll get around to that maybe on Tuesday.
Packing their lunch
Oh, yeah.
Now, go. Yeah. Ludicrous speed.
Funny.
Yeah. Yeah. Any last words, Russ? Otherwise, I feel like we've.
Oh, maybe it's
I
time
don't
to
know.
land the
I
plane.
think
Oh,
Russ
man.
was pretty quiet the entire time. I don't think he really added a lot of value. I think in terms of podcast value, we might need to replace Russ.
With what? 2 Russes?
Well, if we could get double Russ, I would be totally in on that. You know.
Figure that out.
See what I can do.
2 Russes.
One of my kids guest starring next week.
Bring them all in. No.
I'll have to explain budgie.
Oh
smugglers
no.
to
Well,
What have you gotten yourself
My-
into, Dan?
my legal team.
Don't ask questions.
My
just sit there
legal
and
team
smile.
has told me that because I already signed
They quit?
because I already signed a contract with them on my stories, that you guys need to pay a fee every time you use the term budgie smugglers.
I'm going to check on the trademarks for that guy.
I'm just saying, I said, look, we'll get Rob's lawyers, Dewey, Treatham, and Howe, to talk to their lawyers, and I'm pretty sure the only thing that'll come out of that is that we all end up paying a shit ton of money.
Yeah. Well, nobody wins here.
So,
Might
Lawyers.
be worth it to hear budgie smugglers recited in a court of law.
That would be kind of.
if you went and if you
Exhibit
could do
A.
a Google search of every legal opinion in Australia, I guarantee you the term budgie smugglers would have already come up. Right.
it's in there somewhere.
It probably is, how.
There was the
Right.
I don't know if you watched there was the videos a couple of years ago of some guy in Queensland is like the Florida of Australia, and there was some guy that like hunted down some guys that like tried to rob his closest petrol station because he was buying smokes there at the time, and they came in, and he ran out with a rubber flip-flop, a thong in Australia we'd call it. Ran out after them and like beat them with this rubber thong, and like it's like, and then they interviewed him. He's like, well, yeah, it's like I was there, and but you're not wearing pants. Oh, I had my budgie smugglers on. Everything was fine, And the guy would have been interviewed by the police, and the police would have, and then he would have been interviewed by the defense lawyers, right? Those steaming pile of turds that are trying to get the guilty bastards off. And those guys would have said, oh, well, what were you doing? He said, and the guy would have said, well, I was there in my budgie smugglers, So I don't think, you could do a honest search of Australian judicial records without finding the term budgie smugglers.
It's in there.
I'm sure. Well, guys, what I've learned is our retro tech is a depressing want to fit in. And
No, I think
We
it's
should
all
just
that
move
we're
forward.
just old guys complaining about the past.
That's exactly.
We
that's
are
exactly what I learned.
100%. We are 100% on brand.
excellent. Well, until next time, then. Get off my lawn.
And I'm
until
expecting,
Budgie
Russ,
Smuggler-
that Rob's going to send each of us a 12-pack of those BASF metal cassette tapes to use.
Oh hell yeah! I'll make you a mixtape.
I have a really good tape recorder in my garage that
Of course you do.
I do.
Yeah. It's attached to the main shaft drive of his Dodge Neon.
Right next to my next to my Laserdisc
He's
player,
got
by
to
the way.
he's got to keep that in.
Wouldn't even talk about Laserdisc players.
How could we not talk about Laserdisc? He's got to keep the engine
All right,
above
next, we gotta do it next
4,000
time.
RPM, or otherwise the tape gets jitters.
Oh gosh. All right.
I can't wait to go for a ride in this car, Rob.
Yeah, you can.
No, it is a horrible, horrible, shitty car. No, it is seriously.
No, it is not.
It's got like about 7,000 RPM. It's got about 7,000 horsepower. Right, it'll do a standing quarter in about 2.4 seconds. In fact, it has ablative material on the front of it so that it burns off while he's down the track. But it also can't turn, has no suspension, and stinks of soy sauce and bong water.
All right. And get off my lawn, you all. We'll do this next time.
Thanks, y'all.
Cheers.
All right, catch you, boys.
Thanks for joining us for this latest episode of Get Off My Lawn. Well, not my lawn, maybe their lawn? Look, I don't take any responsibility for how these narration bits are worded, for the record. Regardless, I think the guys have all learned something today. Mainly that retro tech is more about TikTok influencers and less about how it's better than CDs and the MP3s that you're used to. Wait, how it's better? How what's better? Ugh, forget it, I'm too sick to care. Still, the ritual of making a coffee and spinning a record can be therapeutic to these old-timers. And of course, they somehow find a way to work budge smugglers in again. Boy, I don't even know what that means, nor do I get paid nearly enough to Google that shit just to say something witty about it. You know what? I'm gonna go down some NyQuil and pray that this actually makes it into the episode, because this is absolutely my best work yet. Until next time, buy a V8, toss your turbos in the scrap heap, and play your cassette tapes loud, my friends. Cheers, motherfuckers!